All right, hi you guys. I know it's been a minute since you all have heard from me. I've taken some time, but I'm back and I just have something that I want to say because I feel like it needs to be said, um, or shared rather. um, Today, during my quiet time, I kept hearing the word Jacob, the name Jacob, and even after my quiet time when I went into mother duties, I started preparing the children's breakfast and everything. I kept hearing the word Jacob. And I'm like, Jacob, Jacob. And I was on the phone with my husband. I still was hearing the word Jacob. And I'm like, babe, who is Jacob? And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, in the Bible, who is Jacob? Because I keep hearing Jacob. So finally, I got up and I'm like, you know what? I'm just about to go read up on Jacob because there's something there that I need to, that I need to hear, that I need to develop and get across. So I sat down to read Jacob. I started at 12:30, and then after I finished reading it, I had to read it again because it was so good. And then I was like, Lord, why did you give me this? So I want to go. Listen, I'm a writer, filler. I took some notes, okay? So listen, and then me, when I don't feel I'm getting the whole picture, because I need to see the full picture. Do you hear me? I'm learning. That's one of my dysfunctions. So I got sidetracked and I was like, well, let me go back. Let me go all the way back to, because I've been studying Abraham and I stopped months ago. So I'm like, let me just go back to Genesis 21. And then I made it to Genesis 23, and the Holy Spirit was like, but I didn't send you there. So I went back. Genesis 25 is where it started. So I went to Genesis 25. I read it and I made some notes. So just to give you a little background story of Jacob from Genesis 25. Jacob is Isaac and Rebekah's son. He's a twin. Esau is the oldest twin, his brother. And if you remember the story of Jacob and Esau, Jacob tricked his brother out of his birthright. Esau worked in the fields. Esau was Isaac's favorite son. Jacob was Rebekah's favorite son. Jacob was a homebody, but Esau worked in the field. And this particular day, when Esau came home, he said he was starving. And his brother had made some stew because that's what his brother done. Some stew, I'm sorry, I said soup, some stew. And in the middle of, let me turn this off. Jacob basically goes, well, I'll give you some stew if you give me your birthright. And Esau was like, ain't no need of dying over this, keeping the birthright. I'm going to dying of starvation. So he gave his birthright to his brother. He sold his birthright to his brother for a bowl of stew. When Isaac got older, as he was getting old, he was losing his sight, and he wanted to go ahead and bless his son. We know that Esau is the oldest, so he'll get the blessing as well because he's the oldest. So when Rebekah heard that Isaac was getting ready to bless Esau, she intervened and she told Jacob what to do so that he can get the blessing. Now, if you go back, when Rebekah was pregnant, Esau and Jacob would always fight in the womb, and she wanted to know why they were always fighting in the womb. So she went to God, and God told her that because the two of them will become two nations. He also went ahead to say that from the beginning there'll be rivals, and one will be stronger than the other, and the older brother will have to serve the younger brother. So Rebekah already had insight and perspective on this, but she intervened. Long story short, Esau is hairy, Jacob is not. Rebecca sends Jacob to get a goat, and she took the goat skin and put it on his arms and his neck. That way when Isaac went to feel him, he'll feel hair. She also went as far as getting Esau's clothes and putting it on Jacob. That way the father can smell that this is his son. And that's actually how it happened. The father was like, I can't see, but I know the voice of my child, and this definitely sounds like. So the father goes like, you sound like Jacob, but you smell like Esau. You sound like Jacob, but you feel like Esau. And he had to ask. He said, Jacob, is this you? And Jacob goes, no, this is Esau. Just fast forward through all of that. There were 2 parts to this. So this is what I got. Isaac blessed Jacob. Esau came in. And the father was like, I don't have anything for you. The blessing, I just gave a blessing, and that blessing shall stand. Your brother tricked me, and I gave the blessing. So Esau was so angry that he said when his father died, he was going to kill his brother. And Rebecca overheard. So she played a part in it, and she was like, I can't stand the Canaanite women, So she told it to Abraham. Abraham is the grandfather, okay? She told it to Isaac. And so Isaac, not only did Isaac bless Jacob, but he blessed Jacob twice. And the second blessing, he basically told him, he said that he must not marry a Canaanite woman, that he will have many children, he'll multiply descendants, and they'll become many nations. He also spoke a word over him and said that he should have the blessing of Abraham. Now, Abraham was Isaac's father, Jacob's grandfather. He said that he will own the land which he lives now, where he'll be a foreigner to. Meaning, he was saying that even though you're going to be a foreigner to this land, you're getting ready to leave, you're going to own this land. So Rebecca sent Jacob to live with his uncle Laban and said that he should marry one of his daughters. So Jacob left, and he went to where his uncle Laban was. And before he made it there, he fell asleep, and he had a dream. And in the dream, God made him a promise. It was many promises. He said the ground that you're laying on belongs to you and your descendants. Told him his descendants will be as great as far as north, south, east, and west. He told him his descendants will be as numerous as the dust on the earth, and that there were families on the earth that will be blessed through his descendants. He also told him that he would bring him back to the land he fled from, and he wouldn't leave him until he has given him everything that he promised. So it made me like, Lord, why did you give me this? So Jacob was not perfect. He was flawed. He was a deceiver. He was a liar. He was a manipulator. He had to flee just to keep his brother from killing him. He was on the run. You know what I'm saying? He ran for his life. So he was all those things. And even though he was all those things, God found him right where he was. And through all of this, God reached him in a dream. And he said he would be with him. And through that dream was the God encounter that Jacob needed. That dream is where Jacob found God. That dream is where Jacob vowed to worship God and to honor him and to give him 10% of everything that God gives him. So I felt like, wow, like we don't really have to try to change people, because God will meet that person as they are, right where they're at. They can have a God encounter that will change their lives forever. And I was like, I had woke my husband up. I was like, babe, why do we try to change people? That was like a wow moment for me. But then as I kept reading, when Jacob finally made it to Laban's house, his uncle, he met his cousin Rachel. And he fell in love with Rachel. And after a month of working for his uncle was like, you don't have to work for me for free. Tell me your price. I'll give you anything. And Jacob said that he wanted to marry Rachel. He said, give me Rachel. I want to marry Rachel. So the agreement was that Jacob would work for him for 7 years. And then after 7 years, he can marry Rachel. So it goes to tell us that Jacob committed to working 7 years before he was able to marry his wife. He worked 7 years, and because he loved his wife so much, it felt like days to him. And the story goes on to tell us how, let's go back, because I felt like, wait a minute. You worked 7 years to marry someone, and it felt like days to you, like you loved her so much that you waited patiently while you worked. And it was like, man, like, how long will you wait or work for your marriage? Like, dang, he waited 7 years. But I don't want to stop there, because this is where it gets interesting. So Jacob thought that he was marrying Rachel. Laban gathered everyone together, done a big feast. He went to marry, his wife. And then when he went to sleep with her, he woke up and realized that this is not Rachel. I was tricked. This is Leah, the oldest. So he went back to Laban and he was like, okay, you tricked me. What's up? And Laban goes, well, it's not our custom to marry off our youngest daughter before our oldest daughter. He said, but I tell you what, if you work for me for another 7 years, I'll give you Leah. Jacob said, okay. So he committed to work for another 7 years for for Rachel. I was like blown back by this. Like, okay, really? So 1 week after marrying Leah, Laban gave Jacob Rachel. And then he worked for 7 years. So let's think about this. He already put in 7 years work, but he was tricked. He didn't get what he was promised. So he went back, gave his uncle another opportunity to make it right. His uncle says, you can work for me for 7 more years. I will give you your heart's desire, Rachel. 1 week after he was bamboozled, he was given Rachel, but he still went back and followed through with his commitment. So it was like, okay, Lord, I get where you're going with this. Okay. So now I have to ask you all, like, we get married and we feel like everything should be perfect. I know I've been there. I feel like it shouldn't be hard work. It shouldn't be this. I shouldn't have to do this and I shouldn't have to do this. Like, we have all of these expectations because we feel like we know what a marriage should be, because based on the world that we live in, we feel like marriage should be ABC 1, 2, 3, piece of cake, and it's not. And I know for me, I oftentimes found myself saying, I am tired. I don't want to do this. I'm tired. My husband don't do this. I feel like he should do this. He's this when he should be this. Like, I'm tired. But it was an eye-opener for me that I feel that I have to share this with you all when it comes to marriage. No man is perfect. You won't find one. Every man, no matter the area, the struggle that you have, needs work in some way, shape, or form. So with that being said, as wives, why do we try to change our spouse? Why do we try to manipulate them into being or pervert them into being what they are not, when, as you can clearly see, God met Jacob and Jacob had a God encounter and it changed his life? Which brings me to my next question, like, because I always say I'm tired. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight. Like, I don't want to fight for, like, who wants to keep getting in the ring? Like, who wants to keep, but what I've realized is when we get in the ring, we're getting in a ring fighting each other when we should be getting in a ring to fight a spiritual fight. But I hear a lot of people say, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to spend my entire life. I was one of them. I don't want to spend my entire life always fighting, always warring. Like, I got to do what? Wait a minute. What? Like, I can't never. And when I found myself recently coming to combat, I heard TD Jakes say, the reward for overcoming one challenge is another challenge. So it's always going to be another battle. Like, so when I read this, I had to, like, how long will you wait? How long will you work for your marriage? Like, will you do it graciously? Will you do it? Will you remain patient? Will you remain faithful? Like, when you feel like, because for me, when I got married, I feel like I was tricked. Like, wait a minute, this is not the husband that I was dating that I now have. I felt tricked. I felt bamboozled. Like, okay, Lord, what's going on? Like, and I tried to change my husband in many different ways. Like, and all I found myself doing was running into brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. I was getting nowhere. It wasn't until I stepped back and focused on me that he was able to have his own God encounter. God was able to meet him. I did nothing. The only thing I did was pray. That's it. And I prayed for God to help me, to show me, because I wasn't perfect. Even though I sit back and I was able to point out everything that I felt like he wasn't, I was overlooking my own flaws. But it just got me to think, like, when it comes to putting in the work, because marriage it's work. When it comes to putting in the work, how will you work? Would you work effortlessly? Will you see the task through to the end? Because think about it. Jacob already got, he was tricked into getting Leah. What he wanted was Rachel. He got Rachel 1 week later. He already got what he wanted. So did he really have to go through and do the work? He stuck it out through the end. Like, he saw it through to the end. Even though he married Rachel, he got the wife he wanted, he still went back and finished the work that he committed through. So I'm doing a new challenge, you all. It's called Gloves Off, and it's to help you all. It's to help me too. Like, I'm not exempt at all, because everything that we're going to be talking about is from my own personal struggles. But I'm doing a new challenge. It's going to be starting in a week, next week rather. Today is Thursday, but yeah, it's going to be starting up in a few days. It's called Gloves Off. I really want you all to jump into this with me effortlessly, and relentlessly. I want you all to join the challenge, to do the work. I want to hear you all's stories. I want to hear your highs, your lows. Like, we're gonna get in, because marriage is gritty. It's gritty work, and we taking the gloves off. We taking no prisoners. So I just wanted to share that with you all. I hope you all have a great Thursday, and I can't wait to see you all with the challenge.